All right, so so here's the deal. Earlier today, I took apart this here Kimber 1911 and was noticing that the way that the 1911 works, in terms of the way the guide rod and spring assembly is locked into place within the design of the gun, is solely dependent in terms of this end of the guide rod on the bottom half of the gun, the bottom frame of the gun. Okay, the whole entire guide rod is braced inside the frame here, whereas some other automatics, more modern automatics, seem to have a notch in a lug in the barrel where the guide rod sits. In addition to that, they're sitting in the frame. But there is always space made up into the frame for the locking kind of cylinder or disc on the back of the guide rod can use to fit into. Okay? And so on the Glock, you can see that, obviously, if you know about Glocks, you already know this, but if you don't, then you will learn something right here. The guide rod sits in a slot that's machined into this barrel piece. In the case of the 1911, it doesn't work that way. So, so that was my kind of analysis that I've done today. See, now I'm feeling like I don't know what to say on this video at all. At all. I just need to get my shit straight communication-wise. Maybe this is why people edit these films. Okay. I don't really like the edit style. I hate it, actually. Because I think it breaks continuity. I think it destroys continuity. It might have some qualities with respect to telling a story efficiently and effectively, but I think that it does whack out continuity, continuity and time lapse. I think those things are important. I think the time that you spend in life should not be condensed in its art form. And that's kind of why I like some of these, you know, I don't know what you would even call them, political internet people. Sometimes I think they're crazy. Other times I think they're entertaining. Other times I think they're helpful. So, but it seems to have kind of degraded a little bit in terms of, oh, what's the word? Sheer, I'm trying to think of how to say this. Lack of entertainment quality factor. I mean, it's getting to the point where folks want to entertain you because they're making money on YouTube, more or less. I would guess that's probably the way that it works. You know, I'm trying to back out of that politically. Like, I'm not trying to like make any accusations, but if you really look at it closely, in terms of the motivating factors for folks to have entertaining aspects to their videos, that seems to me that you are trying to build an audience, which might not be a bad thing. But I would distinguish it. I would distinguish that style of video from one where you're just trying to describe or illustrate or discuss or analyze a certain technical subject or topic. I think those are two different kinds of videos, where both can be good, obviously. I would say that the latter would be maybe more useful. And I guess one could argue, well, what's the viewer's goals for having viewed the video? You know, what is the purpose what is their purpose for looking at the video? Is it to just entertain themselves, which they'll get some benefit from later down the road somehow, whatever, having rested better or whatever? Or is the video to essentially, spread some form of knowledge, grammar knowledge, and hopefully understanding? I don't know. Is that the goal of the video? So, anyway, that's about all I've got to say on this one. Right now, I'm just kind of looking at putting this Glock together, just looking at how it's built and all that. But yeah, so I do enjoy some of the MP3s that I've been listening to for the past several years now. I would say 3 or 4 years, maybe 2 at the least. And it's interesting to see how they're evolving, you know, and what they're doing, and it's getting to the point now where it's a lot of preaching, you know, and it's almost analogous to any other religion, really, in terms of the methodology that's used to disseminate the info, and almost the motivation behind the folks that are disseminating it, as I mentioned in the entertainment section. But like I say, I mean, there's one thing to you. There's two different motivators, and there are two different results that are generated. Let me see if I can go back and say that again. There are two reasons and two results to do what you're doing. Now I completely lost my train of thought. I have had a beer or two, and so I'm not, thinking all that clearly at the moment. But the point is that, a lot of the stuff that I listen to podcast-wise, which is political in nature, and philosophical in nature, and maybe sociological in nature. I mean, guys are kind of talking about conditions of the human being, and they are labeling it, and they are not only labeling it, but they are also criticizing it, in terms of they are disparaging it. They are disparaging the human condition of certain classes of people. But their message is to disparage. Well, no, this isn't. Okay, let me make this clear. This isn't their only message, but they do have a message to disparage the current human condition with respect to the political structures that are in place and the socio-economical classes that are a core component to that structure. And the guys that I listen to are bitching and moaning about that all the fucking time. Now, a lot of it stems out of pure... this whole movement actually stemmed out of 9/11. I'll just be completely honest with you. In that, there's like so much video footage of that 9/11 event in New York and in Washington, D.C., more so in New York, that guys can draw a big discrepancy or can provide a huge criticism of what the government's official analysis and overall conclusion is of 9/11 and who, from the perspective of it being a crime, and who was responsible for it, and all of its civil implications that it came with, and how that one event had these very heavy-duty civil, legal, governmental implications tied to it. Like the airports, right? And you all know what I mean when I'm talking about that. And if someone's listening to this 100 years from now, look it up. 1,000 years from now, we're talking about the security at the airports, which is just egregiously invasive to any human being's privacy. And it's all based on this 9/11 event that, as I've mentioned, there's so much hard physical evidence by way of recording, video, audio, etc. And there are other ways that folks have recorded it, like there's data from the university, one of the nearby universities which had deployed seismographs for just studying, earthquakes and things. There's guys that have shown these huge seismic events going on before the Twin Towers collapsed, but after the planes crashed into them. So that's just another example. So there's video evidence, there's audio evidence, there is a certain amount of eyewitness kind of discussion. But then in addition to that, there's other sensors, if you will. There are these seismograph data that's taken from seismograph instruments. There is probably other examples that I can't think of right now. But the whole thing is that this whole movement of MP3ers and podcasters that talk a lot about politics. They're always talking about politics. It's because of that 9/11, man. The 9/11 was... I'm just kind of looking at this Glock now, how it all works. And the way it works is that, as opposed to the 1911, you have the lug, the muzzle and lug for the guide rod and recoil spring is just built into the slide completely. Whereas in the 1911, the lug is not built into the slide, but it is connected to the slide through the barrel's connection to this. Let me get this in camera. The barrel's connection to this lug that's locked to the slide, which is pushing against this lug that is the primary spring tension lug for the recoil spring and guide rod on the muzzle end. So there's a lot of connections going on here, a shit ton. Whereas this, it seems, and I haven't looked at it closely, so let's look at it close. Okay, yeah, what I'm seeing is that, let me just put this in place. It's almost a no frickin' brainer, man. I mean, this guide rod literally just locks into there, and it just gets clipped up into that little recess or seat in that portion of the barrel. That's it. And you just take this frame and just pop the thing together. I mean, it's a no-brainer kind of a design here. Let's take it down. So you essentially pull the trigger, you pull the slide back ever so slightly. Actually, I did it too much. Like, I haven't mastered it. Okay, you're supposed to shoot it and then just barely pull it back. I don't know if that was in cam. And then it comes right off. So, but I struggle with it a lot because I'm not used to it. I don't know how it works really. And I wind up pulling the slide far, far back when I'm trying to take it down. So I'll shoot it. And I'll pull this shit back way too far. See, I just did it right there. And what happens is the damn thing won't come forward. So I think you just pull it back just a teeny little bit or something. See? There we go, yeah. You almost shoot it, pull down on these, and then just, yeah. Okay. So I was always thinking that the pulling down on the takedown mechanism or control and the pulling back on the slide were two independent things that could take place independently as long as you just had the firing pin in the fired position, that you could just kind of reef down on these and then pull this independently and the slide would just come forward. Well, that's not the case. You actually have to, like, they won't even go down at this juncture. You have to pull down on them and then take the slide back ever so slightly, and by doing that, you can pull down on these lever things. Otherwise, those levers aren't coming down for shit. And I did not know that, and now I do. So, and I don't think it's something doesn't take a little bit of practice to realize. See, now look at that. Why the fuck is that? Oh shit, I put this ass thing on ass backward. See, this is what happens. This is what fucking happens. Alright, we're going to get off the beer, we're going to get off the alcohol, and we're going to stop this video now. Alright, bye-bye.